by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets up center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani. Around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Perry in the face, 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Forever Mighty podcast. It's officially, Stephen, almost a month since we did our last show. Actually, might be exactly a month. I can't remember if it was the 4th or the 8th of January we last did a show. But it's not for a lack of effort or trying. Okay, maybe lack of effort, maybe, but not for a lack of trying. We tried to record twice. I can't remember. The first time we ended up jumping on, we ended up just sitting here trying to get everything to work, and that was too late. It didn't work. And then last week we recorded an entire episode, but I forgot to record your audio.
Yep.
But we're here.
So
we're
that's
here.
Probably an improvement for a lot of people listening, so sorry about that.
Yeah. So you missed us for an entire month, which, I mean, hey, that might have made your month a little bit better. But the Ducks aren't playing. We're on the All-Star break, so we figured now would be a better time than any to get back and get everything actually set up properly and record a show for you. So we've missed officially 13 games, and maybe it's a better point that we're checking in now, because the last time we had jumped on, the Ducks had rattled off 7 games that we had missed to talk about, and they went 1-5-1, and then since then they went 4-2-0 over their last 6 games, and they've won 3 straight. So I guess it's a better time to jump on. At least we got some success to talk about a little bit out of the Bedard race, kind of, but definitely some good games to talk about at the very least.
Yeah, they won 3 in a row, something like that.
Yeah, well, 2 are against Arizona, so I don't know if those count as.
Doesn't care. Don't care. It was a win. I'll take them. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to say they're worse wins because they're a bad team that we're competing with, then fine enough. But no, man. I mean, I think in the heart of the season like this, it's good to get wins and little streaks like that. I think Zegras made the comment in one of his post-game interviews. He's like, we're on a 3 little win streak. And as much as the season's kind of been, rough, he's like, it's nice to get a few wins and stuff like that. Especially going into the All-Star break, going on a high note. Allow these guys to go take a week. We can have decompress, do all that kind of stuff. And then get back on the other side of it, and it's not going to be much better. And, the trade deadline is coming up. So, a lot of these guys are going to be looking over their shoulders for most of the month.
Yeah, we have a lot of that to dive into, too, is looking at who could be on the way out, because I feel like the list just continues to get longer and longer. And maybe it's not guys we didn't expect would get moved, but just who they're open to moving at this point. I think we've heard Strom's name mentioned a few times for Toronto, guys they just signed, adding to the list of guys we were used to and kind of figured, guys like Klingberg and Shattenkirk, who are pending UFAs. Henrique's name's kind of been thrown into the mix because he's had another consistently good season. And I think with 2 years left, there's ways to make that work. If the Ducks end up taking salary back from another team, I doubt they would probably eat any on that contract, or would want to over 2 years. That would probably more so. Klingberg's one you can guarantee they're going to have to eat, and I think they can only have 2 contracts retained, right, at a time.
I think you can have 3 retained salary contracts.
So Klingberg's going to be one for sure.
Yes.
Shattenkirk, you never know if he gets moved. That's possible. The rest of them are on longer-term deals.
Yeah, Shattenkirk, maybe you could say, maybe if it's a Toronto or something who's interested in Kulikov, and you want to drop that one down, because he only makes let me check, 2-3, I think, something real low.
I think Shattenkirk of all of them might be the one. I mean, I forget who reported this, but that the Ducks were discussing contract extension with him. If any of them isn't moved, I could see Klingberg for sure, and then Kulikov I think is more likely than Shattenkirk at this point. If they wanted to keep a guy, a veteran guy in the locker room and on that blue line, I think he's probably the best option to keep around.
Who, Kulikov?
No, Shattenkirk.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. The one I had heard, I saw Jake from, not State Farm, from Late Arrivals made the comment that he's kind of at a point where he wouldn't necessarily hate a Klingberg extension, depending on what the terms of it were.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard anything about Shattenkirk. I do not want to do that.
Yeah.
But the one to me that's the most interesting lately has been Henrique and his viability as it goes to Buffalo and New Jersey, because those are teams that could eat his contract completely.
Yeah.
And I would be very, very curious. Obviously he's got the connections with Jersey in so much as being a guy that was drafted there. And then Buffalo is just a team that I think could use another, top 6, top 9 forward,
Veteran
however
guy
you want to
too,
look at
right?
it.
Like they could use a veteran guy who can still contribute in the top 6. I think that's why Henrique fits so well there. It's a really young team. So I think he'd be, and they have the cap space to make it work, right? To be able to bring him in, where the Ducks wouldn't have to eat any salary, and maybe there's a way to include a bad contract that Buffalo has that you could even that out a little bit if they wanted to. I think Edmonton has been thrown in that mix too, is a team that could be interested in Adam Henrique. I like the fit potentially of him going back to New Jersey the way they've played this year. Be kind of a nice little end for him, right? To go from New Jersey to Anaheim and then back to New Jersey when New Jersey's good again and likely going to make the playoffs at this point. Vegas, I think, would be an interesting one too for Adam Henrique, because Mark Stone is now officially, I think, done for the season. He had back surgery, so he's going to go on LTIR.
That's such a bummer, man.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas just gets hit with this with almost everybody. It seems like one guy a year, but it sucks for Mark Stone because this is, I think, the second time he's had to deal with that and been out for a long period of time, maybe the third time that he's had back issues and he's had to sit out a long period of time. But they'll be looking to do something. They're in a playoff hunt, and the way their roster is built, they need to add somebody. And Henrique just seems like he'd be a really good fit for that team. They've got a lot of guys who can play in a lot of different places and do, good two-way guys, a solid team overall that I think he would fit well, whether they can use him at center at times. If they, if Stevenson and Eichel aren't in the lineup, then you can play him there, shift him to the wing. I think they'll like that versatility. I think they do that a lot with Carlson as well. So he'd be a guy I could see fitting there. But he's the hardest one, I think, to move of all of them, right? Like, you want to get something good for him because he has played well, but you got to dance around that contract and teams that can afford it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. He's really interesting to me because, he's the player I think on this team that is the most attractive to a competitive team at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you want to say, Max Jones, Max Comtois probably, but Henrique is, I think, of all the guys that are even really realistically people would be interested in, I think Henrique makes the most sense just because he is playing really well right now. He's got 18 goals. Like, he would be like 5th or 6th in goals if he was on New Jersey right now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that he's only got 12 assists on the year, so he's really just goal heavy right now. But it would be interesting to see if you put him around, just different players in a more structured system and all that kind of stuff that comes with being moved to a contender.
Yeah,
if he might be,
I like that fit,
closer to 25-25.
I mean, again, like I said, the fit with Henrique and in Vegas being able to play all of the lineup, but I think that works, again, it works well into what New Jersey's done this year. Jack Hughes has played down the middle, but he's usually played with guys who can step into the face-off dot and win. I like the fit of Henrique playing with a player like Jack Hughes. I think when you look at the lineup for New Jersey, Hischer's usually gotten to play with Bratt and Palat for most of the year. Jack Hughes was with Holla for a bit now. Now Holla's playing with Mercer and Tatar, and that line seems to be kind of set for them. And then Hughes right now is playing with Igor Sharangovich, who to his own right was impressive this year and last, and then Fabian Zetterlund. Like, you could just see where a guy like Adam Henrique could fit seamlessly on that line, take some of the center responsibilities at faceoff away from Jack Hughes, which has benefited him all season the way Hughes is playing, and give another shooting option to Hughes on that line where he doesn't have to be the only guy in this team seemingly scoring goals, right? He's got 31 on the year, I think.
33, something like that, yeah.
Something ridiculous. So, yeah, I can see the fit there, man.
Really well.
Personally, that's where I would love to see him go, is New Jersey. Yeah, I like what they've done this year. I think as much as anybody, we're surprised at how well they've done. And he fits into that team and that culture from his history that he has there. And I just like the fit of him as a player would be in that roster. I don't know what New Jersey would have to give us to get him. That's the tough thing right now is the cost because of the contract he has.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So I lied. He would be fourth in goals. It's Jack Hughes at 33, Nico Hischier at 21, Jesper Bratt at 19, and then Dougie is next at 13.
Yeah.
So he would step in, and I mean, that would be huge for them.
Yeah.
I wonder, too, if, like, somebody else gets Timo Meier, if they look to bring somebody in like Henrique, because you can see where he's going to fit in. You can see what he's going to be able to do. He can play in pretty much every situation. And he's not, he's not a commitment long-term beyond next year. And he's not going to mess with anything up, right? Whereas like bringing in Timo Meier, that's a guy that like you're probably going to have to give $9 million. They don't really want to do that. They kind of want to use Jack Hughes' contract as a rough cap on what guys underneath him make. And it's going to be really interesting, but I think he makes a lot of sense there. The other one that he could make sense for, given what they just did, is in theory is the Islanders, but they just don't have anything and they don't have the room, and that's the hard
They would have
part.
made sense if say they missed out on Horvat and they were looking at other options to bring in. I think he would have been a good fit there, but I mean, what they ended up paying for Horvat, the Islanders and the Canucks are in an interestingly similar.
So let me ask you
situation,
this: Bo Horvat is obviously having a much better year than Adam Henrique. Bo Horvat is also a significantly distressed asset because of the way everything in Vancouver has gone. Would you think that the trade would be roughly the same with like Beauvillier and Aturadu, and maybe they don't give us the pick, or maybe they give us a different pick?
Yeah, I think it could have. Like the interesting thing for me is that seems like a package that for what they spent for Horvat in between a rental and possibly extending him, right? Like if it was just a rental price, I feel like they could have got away with less. But if he had came with an extension, then I think they would have had to pay a little bit more. But they paid kind of right in between that. So I could see Henry getting something similar because he does have next year as well. So you've got that security of, okay, you're trading for him and you're getting him for this year and next year. So you can maybe ask for a little bit more there. But yeah, I think that's fair. Like it would have been Beauvillier, Aturati, and maybe not the first, and they keep the first to use for a different asset. And you can get like a second round pick or something for that. I think that's probably what it would have fell around. I think that's a good deal if the Ducks can get something like that for Adam Henrique in the case of like a younger roster player, a draft pick and a prospect. Maybe not the top prospect like Aturati was in their system, but something like that. So if you look at,
they don't have a great prospect pool to begin with. So,
but you look at maybe Boston as a team that could do that. Second round pick, Lysell, and a younger player from their roster, whoever that ends up being. I think there's a lot of teams who would do that deal as long as they know they can fit Adam Henrique under their cap next year without it becoming an issue for them.
Adam Henrique would be so good in Boston. I'm going to look into this now. I want to see who we could have to take back.
I was thinking for Horvat's case, we had the schedule for later, but we might as well talk about it now. I thought Boston, and I think we talked about this before, would have been a perfect fit for Bo Horvat to go to. The Islanders was a bit of a surprise, honestly. Like I see where he fits
very much so
on that roster because they were kind of shoehorning Matt Barzal still into center, and it hasn't really worked out for him down the middle. So now they've got Horvat and Brock Nelson. At least they've got two guys who are bona fide top six centers in the league. So on a roster standpoint, it makes sense. I think
Barzal's their top line center.
Yeah, he's shifting to the wing now.
Oh, is he?
They had him skating on the right wing for Bo Horvat in their latest lineup. So now Nelson's 2C and
how about that?
Horvat's going to be 1C. So I think they wanted to get a chance to see what Barzal can do on the wing. And they couldn't do that with who they had before, right? There wasn't much depth at center underneath Brock Nelson, so they didn't really have the opportunity to do that. So it's Lou, though. Like that's the good and bad with Lou is he'll make a move, and he doesn't, he's not scared to make a move like that to make the team better. But is that what the Islanders should be doing right now, right? Is that really what they should be trying to do, is bring in a guy like this, selling, your two best assets in terms of your best prospect and your first round pick of this year to try and compete when you're not even in a playoff spot right now.
Yeah, how would you feel about basically taking, let's see, who do they have? They don't really have anybody. But I wonder, with Patches out for the year after hurting his Achilles, if Jack Drury and a second round pick would be enough for Adam Henrique, because he would fit perfectly fine into that what do you call it? That LTIR space that they can create. Because as of right now, Pacioretty's not on long-term. He's not on long-term injured reserve. He's just long-term injured.
Right.
Or he's just on injured reserve. Sorry, very different. But I wonder if doing something like that would be interesting, if they would be open to that. Jack Drury would be a really nice player to add to this team.
No, I'd be down for it. I think that's what you'd hope to go into it is get a prospect, a top 4 prospect in a team system, and at least a second round pick for Adam Henrique, especially the way he's been playing. And it's not like Klingberg.
He'd be a great player for Rod, too.
And it's not like Klingberg this year, who might be a little bit difficult to get what you maybe wanted for him, because it's been an up and down year statistically for him. Adam Henrique's been consistently good all year, and he's had a really good stretch of games here. He's got 11 points in his last 13 games and 7 goals as well. So he is, holding that value, if not adding to it, heading into the deadline. So I think when you see Meyer and maybe a few of the other bigger names that could be available, if they go or it comes out that they're not moving, I think that's when you'll get teams looking into Adam Henrique, or teams that just aren't willing to pay what it would cost to bring in a guy like Meyer or even a guy like Horvat before he ended up getting moved. He could be a nice, cheaper secondary option for a team, and you know what you're going to get from him. There's been a definition really of consistency across his career of what he's going to bring to the lineup and to the locker room.
So let's say it's Foligno, Lysell, and a first. Would you eat $1.5 million to $2 million on Rico to make that deal?
Yeah. I don't think it's detrimental to the Ducks. It's really just next year that affects you.
Yeah, because if you eat that $2 million, that basically makes his contract right around the same as what Foligno's is right now. And he's just a much more useful player than Foligno, and I think Foligno would be a perfect player to bring to
And I believe Perry's buyout goes down $2 million next year anyway, right? It's at its highest peak of 4 or something this year that it's costing them, and I think it goes back down next year.
I think it goes away.
It either goes away or goes down, yeah. So at the very least, they lose some money there. So eating Henrique's salary next year, you're not really losing anything in a sense, right?
Yeah, it's gone. It's off the books. This is the last year, and it's at $2 million.
Right, so you eat $2 million on Henrique's contract for next year. You act as if it was still there, in a sense. So it's not the end of the world. You're going to free up $2 million at the end of the year, and if you eat $2 million just to get a better deal, it's not bad. The Ducks have the space to do that, and they're not going to be desperate players, I think, in free agency this upcoming offseason, where it would really make a difference to them. We know Zegras is going to get a contract. We know Terry's going to get a contract, but even then, I don't think that $2 million is going to come back to haunt them a little bit.
No, not at all. No, because even if they do work out an extension with Klingberg, he's clearly not going to get $7 million. There are so many different ways that I just don't like. Kulikov probably not coming back. Shattenkirk might not come back. If he does, he's going to drop. I don't think that $2 million. And what a world we live in, is all that significant in the big picture of the team. And I think if you can, maybe pick up another pick or something like that, because they already have Boston's second this year. But if they were to pick up, a third or even just another different prospect or something like that, I think that could be great.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to bring Lysell in. That would be a lot of fun. He'd be, for a team that needs real serious foot speed, he could be a huge addition. And his ability to play the left wing, I think, would be huge. Yeah. Him and McTavish would be a very interesting pairing.
Yeah, I could be down for it. I'm interested to see how this deadline is going to go. We might as well dive into it now and look at kind of, I guess, an assessment of the team, if we want to call it that, because we're at the All-Star break now.
Yeah.
A good way to look back at it. Quick summary of the games we've missed. Like you said, 5-7-1 in the last 13 games. outscored 57-40. I think before the last 6, it was like 39-18. So a better run. Ducks scored 13 goals over those last 3 games on the win streak there. So that helped kind of pad the numbers a bit. Still dead last in goals per game at 2.44. Dead last in goals against average at 4.16. Power play is 15.86%, ranked 30th. Penalty kills ranked 30th at 72.4. And the Ducks, points percentage-wise, are the 3rd worst team in the league. With that 3-game win streak, they've moved ahead of Chicago. They've moved ahead of Columbus, who's kind of firmly in the bottom after losing 3 in a row. And they're actually closing in on Arizona because they picked up those 2 wins over the Coyotes, too, that drew them a little bit closer. Still in that top 4 area where we want to be, to get one of those 4 guys we've mentioned before, whether it's Bedard or Fantilli, Michkov, or Leo Carlson. But moving out of it a little bit. But let's look at this kind of season, I guess, as a whole. What do we expect for the rest of the season? Some pros and cons from what we've seen so far. Looking ahead at the deadline, we kind of have done that a little bit. Is this, at this point, Ducks are what? 17, 31, and 5. What you expected at this point? Below expectations? Slightly above expectations?
I mean, I feel like they've been kind of what we thought. Terry's looked good. McTavish has looked good. Zegras has looked good. Jamie looked good for the couple of games he was able to play.
Yeah.
We've seen flashes from Gibby where he's been back to his old self a little bit. And you've seen some of the plays with Klingberg. Like there's all these little glimpses that you've seen. I think you can fairly look at this roster and say there are still obviously far more questions than answers. But I don't know that I'm not concerned in a more meaningful way going forward about this team than I am when I came into the season. Everything I was worried about has pretty much been true or has come true. And it's roughly been right about where you would figure.
Yeah, there's been no, like, in both sides of things, there's been no surprises in, like, a good way in a sense, and there's been no surprises in a bad way. The players you hoped would be good and that you hoped would continue off seasons last year, like Terry and Zegras, have been good. McTavish has jumped in and been almost as good as you could expect from him in a full rookie season. Like, the sample size of Drysdale has been good. Henrique has come back and been consistent. Strowman and Vetrano have been pretty good and in spurts have shown why the Ducks signed them. So, like, everything is kind of panned out in an expected way in a sense, and they're right around where you thought they probably deserved to be, which is a bottom 5 team in the league based off the way the roster is constructed. There's been no guy who's jumped off the page and surprised everybody this year. There really just hasn't been that guy, but then there's been nobody who's fallen off and been really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you wanted to be a little, I don't know, hypercritical, but a little more than critical, I think you can look at John Klingberg and be a little disappointed in some of the production, some of the inconsistencies with him. But, I think that by and large, he's been okay. He doesn't necessarily have all of the support you would kind of hope for. But, he's starting to pick his goal scoring up a little bit. He looks a little bit more comfortable, activating the offensive zone and things like that. I've loved Vetrano. Like, I think that out of all of them so far, he's been my favorite signing. Like, I just love that kid just shoots. He just shoots every time, and it's awesome. I love it so much. Ryan Strom's been okay. I think if you want to be a little disappointed in him, I think that's fair. But, like you said, like, I don't think anybody's been so noticeably disappointing or so noticeably exciting with, you could maybe say Klingberg because of the $7 million contract, but I don't necessarily think that's fair.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think you can say this was on the table for John Klingberg, which is why he's making $7 million, which is he comes into a bad team and he isn't able necessarily to perform. And, the offset for that is, well, we're going to give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's traded at the deadline. Like, I kind of want to send him back to Dallas.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. I can't imagine it happens, but, like, didn't things kind of end in a not so great way with Klingberg
Yeah,
and
it
Dallas.
ended a little rough.
Like, it wasn't
but I think
anything horrible. It was kind of, he expected them to give him the money he thought he was worth, and they just said nope, or we'll see you later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the rumor was like he wanted like 8x8 or something, and I think the last I heard is they had offered him somewhere between like 6 and 7. But I think the interesting there is before he signed this summer with Anaheim, he fired his old agent, who was his agent through that extension process. I wonder, with somebody else giving him new information, and with him being outside of Dallas for the first time in his career, if he would be like, I actually really like Dallas. Like, you know what I mean? Because, like, they don't have a second top 4 right-handed D. You know, it's pretty much like Colin Miller, I guess. Yeah. And, you know, he fits in really well there. Like, he could...
It's not like he has to re-sign there either. That's the thing. He could go there and then make his choice in the offseason, so...
Yeah, and maybe, you know, maybe they make a nice deep run and it just ends on a slightly higher note than it did coming into it. It's a really interesting one for me.
I don't think the bridge is burned completely. Like, I definitely think it's a possibility that he could go back there. Because, yeah, like you said, I do see the fit where I think Heiskanen has benefited from power play one time this year for sure. You know, I think what you said, he has 40 points. The next highest defenseman is Lindell with 14 on that team, right? Like, it's...
Yeah.
You know, Lundqvist has been a good pickup from the Rangers, but there isn't anybody else on that team putting up points from the blue line consistently. That's what Klingberg's there to do. And if you can insulate him with a lot of the good kind of two-way defensemen that they have, and just, you know, maybe limit his 5-on-5 minutes, because you have guys who can do that, and use him as a power play specialist a little bit more. You don't have to lean on him as much as they were before. I could see it working. I could see it. Maybe he's not their number one option, but if other guys go off the board at that point and they're looking at adding at the blue line, and he's kind of one of the last guys left or the best available option, I don't think they would say no immediately just because it's him.
What would you want in that trade? Because, like, the one player I'm interested in that trade is Radek Faksa.
Yeah, I think you would want, like, somebody who can contribute to the team now. The Stars have some good prospects. I just don't know. Again, like, I'm so interested to see what the eventual value is going to be on Klingberg. I have no idea where it's going to be, because I think there are teams that value him and can use him in a way properly that they might be willing to play a first in a prospect. But I could also see a world where he gets significantly under that because the interest just isn't there. I would hope to look at maybe, you know, not the top 2 prospects on Dallas by any means, but, you know, some guy that's around the 4th, 5th prospect in their system. You
don't think we can get Stankoven?
No, I don't think so. I think Stankoven, I think Wyatt Johnston, I think they're pretty much locked in. Maybe you could somehow get away with Maverick Bourque or Leon Bichelle or something like that. If you could, if you can walk away with one of those guys, I think that's a win. But even if it's a lesser prospect or a Faxa or something and their first-round picks, that's also an option that I would welcome. I mean, listen, if you get a first-round pick and a prospect, or a better prospect and like a second-round pick for Klingberg, that's a win-win, right? You signed him to do that. Anything you get for this guy is found money, found assets at the end of the day. So I'm just interested to see what he goes for, to be honest. I have no idea what the value is on him. We haven't really heard much either. No predictions or nothing really out there on what he could potentially get, other than maybe I think it was Frank Saravelli like a month or 2 ago now said he could see the price being a first-round pick plus on Klingberg. I haven't heard anything since then.
Okay, so let's see. Number 1 prospect, according to friend of the show, Scott Wheeler, Logan Stankoven.
Okay.
Fair to say we're not getting him.
No.
2, Maverick Bourque.
Okay.
With Wyatt Johnston graduated, you can maybe talk yourself into it, but I still think that one's a little tougher.
Yeah.
3 is Thomas Harley, which is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Anaheim has plenty of left-handed defenders right now. I don't need that. They know that they need another one, especially with, I do think he's more of an offensive type.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then 4 is Leon Bichelle. 5 is Christian Kyrou, right-handed defenseman.
Yep.
That would be a good
I think
one.
that's the territory you start getting in there. Is Leon Bichelle might be a tier above of what you could expect. I think that would be like as far up I think you could go prospect-wise. But I think once you start getting into Christian Kyrou, who's after that too?
After Christian Kyrou?
Yeah.
Ayrton Martino.
Okay. Yeah, so I think when you start getting into that,
Riley Damiani,
is the guys you would
Matvei
look at.
Blumel.
I would look at Christian Kyrou then if you can add another right-handed defenseman into the mix. I think he is smaller and more offensive-minded, so again, like he's in the similar mold to what Drysdale was in the OHL.
I think he's smaller than that. I think it's even closer to like a Vatanen.
I think he's like 5'9", 5'10". But he's really good.
He's a wee lad.
From the clips I've seen from him this year, I do like him. I think the Stars got him in a really good spot. I know he got traded out of Erie this year. I'm not sure where he ended up going.
Sarnia.
That's okay. He's playing with Pastuov, so you have that. I'm sure the Ducks have seen him enough this year, the scouts that are out there watching Pastuov and checking in on his development. So I think, if you can't get a Bichelle and you can't aim for that top tier of their prospects, I think Christian Kyrou is that next level that if you're moving Klingberg, you'd be ecstatic to get a guy like that. A young player that is a couple years away from making an impact on your roster, and now you've got another right-handed option in the system because they don't have too many, right? We're looking at the top prospects in the system from the blue line. On the right, Luneau is a great pickup, and I know you love him, and Noah Warren as well. So if you can add Christian Kyrou to that mix, who now you've got a more offensive-minded guy in Kyrou. You've got Luneau, who's kind of in the middle of both of those, and then you've got Warren, who's a bit of a shutdown guy. You've got three profiles on that right-hand side behind Jamie Drysdale when he comes back too. So I think.
Plus, you still have Hellison.
Yeah, and you got Hellison,
who's kind of become the forgotten man on that right side.
Yeah.
But and again, like he could be. I think Hellison of all of them too. Maybe Warren, but I think Warren's overt physicality will get him into the lineup faster. But I could see Hellison, good lord, Hellison being a guy that comes up a couple of times and then maybe sticks around at closer to 25-ish.
Yeah, a little bit of a longer path, but when he gets there, he's one of those guys that I feel like he has enough in there to stick around. So.
And the other thing is bringing in guys like this, it allows you to move some of those other guys. If you want to move a Hellison or if somebody wants a Warren. And I know Verbeek has spoken very positively about Warren. He sees him as somebody who could potentially pair with Owen Zellweger and kind of provide that physicality to kind of help and offset and size to offset what Zellweger does, or any tangential risks that come with playing an undersized attacking defenseman. But it gives you options, and I think that's one of the things that me and you have talked about a lot over the summer and coming into this year. It's just about trying to keep giving yourself options. So in that end, I guess, and because we are talking about the trade deadline and things like that, like, where do you feel the team is in its timeline? Like, how far away do you think it is before the team pushes for a wild card spot? I think is the best way to say it.
It definitely does.
Has anything this year changed it?
No, not for me. Because we haven't had anything surprising to take it to a level we did, to bring that timeline any closer. Zegras and Terry have been good. McTavish has been kind of what we expected or hoped for him. He hasn't jumped above that. He's not running away with the Calder point per game player, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing that showed me to say, okay, like we're closer to that goal. We're a year or two closer based off this or that. No, Lucas Dawson's come up and look good. You can see a future there potentially beyond John Gibson, so that helps with the timeline. McTavish has looked good. The prospects that are outside of the AHL and the NHL, Pastuov, Zellweger, Michkov, they've all played well. You're going to add another top four prospect, a really good one, to your prospect pool after this year. But yeah, I think the timeline, you're still looking at 3 or 4 years, right? Before maybe 2-3 years if you want to squeeze it a little bit. But at some point you need some help, consistent help for Zegras and Terry. When they're not going, beyond, there's Adam Henrique for Toronto, McTavish and Strome every now and then. But when those guys aren't going, and if the other guys aren't picking up the slack, that's when you see the Ducks go on these runs here where they get outscored by almost 2 to 3 times the amount of goals they're putting in the back of the net for long stretches of games. So there's just not enough offensive consistency. So you've got to get that guy, that top elite end talent into your roster, whether it's next year or the year after. You've got to, hit on guys like Pastuov and get, very interesting, unique players like Michkov and Zellweger into that blue line. See what guys like Leno and Warren and pan out to be, and that's going to take 2 or 3 years. You're not going to pull a Vancouver situation here where the Ducks go out into free agency this offseason and add a bunch of guys. Like it's just likely not going to happen. So with the way things have gone this year and the way guys are progressing in the system, like you have to think, 2 years is extremely optimistic. 3 is probably right in the middle, and maybe 4 is being a little bit pessimistic, but it's somewhere in between that 2 to 4 year range that they should be consistently competing for a wild card spot, if not, higher up in the division. It just depends on the development time for a lot of these young guys that are on the way.
Does Bedard specifically change that for you? Does Bedard make it closer to 2 years?
If he's as good as everybody thinks he's going to be, and if he steps into the NHL right away as like a point per game player instantly and a 30 to 40 goal threat, then it definitely does, right? You're adding a superstar into your lineup and not a superstar in 2 or 3 years. Like a guy who's a superstar at that point, he's your best player, your best offensive player immediately when you get him in the lineup. All signs point to him being that guy and having a McDavid type impact. So yeah, I think you add a player like that, you're definitely closer. You're definitely closer to that 2 year. And then maybe if you do get him in the draft, that spurs you on to maybe make some additions in free agency or be able to attract some players there that you can get that timeline a little bit closer as well, right? So he makes a huge difference. I think if you don't get him and you get Fantilli, Karlsson, Michkov doesn't really do anything for the timeline because he can't get there for 2 or 3 years, I think, anyway, right? So
right, yeah. Summer of 26 is his first opportunity to come over, assuming everybody just follows the rules.
Yeah. And so if you're thinking, if you get him, then the timeline is going to stay the same, if not extend a little bit longer. For Fantilli and Karlsson, you don't exactly know when, if you're going to get them right away, if Fantilli is going to go back to college, if Karlsson's going to stay in Sweden, if they're going to play in the AHL at any point, right? So you don't necessarily know that guy's going to step in your lineup right off the bat and have a Bedard type impact that you would expect. So I think anything beyond Bedard, the timeline stays the same until you see those guys get in the lineup. But yeah, I think it's Connor Bedard, and from what we've seen from him, that immediately jumps your timeline up a little bit, as talented of a player as everybody thinks and hopes that he's going to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because I think, I think this year we've seen 3 or 4 young players look exactly. My dog is drinking right now. I'm sure you can.
That's
hear
all right.
That. He's very rude. I think what we've seen is how far away the other pieces are, right? Perot still hasn't come up. I know this is something that you've been tracking as far as being like, at what point is it a concern? I think he got scratched a couple games in a row down in the AHL.
Yeah, 2 assists in 20 games at one point, so it was...
Braden Tracy's okay. There's Sam Colangelo, but he's a bottom 6 guy more than likely. You've got Pastuov, who I think at this point is probably your best bet for a forward outside of the team. To step in and have top 6 upside. And I think that is the part of this that we have seen. And then, I think there's 5 question marks on defense. I think at this point, if you said, like, who is definitely on this team the next time they're in the playoffs, I think it's Zegras, Dostal, McTavish, Terry, Drysdale.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm not prepared to put anybody else.
Yeah. You could make an argument for Cam, but then the argument, against it is, well, he's almost out of contract in 4 or 5 years, right? And if that's when you're making the playoffs at that point, a lot easier to move. Maybe you don't keep him around. He's older at that point. You've got Michkov, you've got Zellweger, who at that point should hopefully be a couple years in the league, that there's a chance he moved on. So yeah, I think the list is fairly small, and it's just the young players that are in the roster currently and the guys that are on the way in Dostal, and the guys we've seen at least is what you expect to be on the roster.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's 5 out of 23 guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, and I don't mean that to be discouraging. I think it's just more of there's still a bit of time to go. You know, I've seen people kind of want to go after certain free agents this summer, and I'm 100% with you still. I think it's way too early. I think they should be competing with Arizona for guys with 1 or 2 years left on those deals, picking up picks. You know, the other thing, if they really want to go out and add like some guys to really help, then I have a very hard time thinking you don't hold Vancouver to the fire and say, when you end up with that top 6, top 5 pick, you're going to give it to me and I'm going to take Meyer and Garland off your hand.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I just think that's, you know, those are 2 guys that come in, they fill a very simple role. They, you know what I mean? They're going to step right in and be exactly who you need them to be. And both of them get a fresh start, which sometimes can be huge, and it'll probably be a new coach, you know, and I think that might be actually, I guess, the best way to start or frame it is we don't know what this team is until we see the next coach.
Yep.
Because until we get an idea of what the next coach is, everything Verbeek is saying is, you know, cliches, right? He's like, we want to be tough, we want to be fast, we want to be skilled, we want to, you know, it's all that stuff. And I'm not saying he's saying anything wrong, but it's just your general stuff, right? We want to make sure we're hard to play against. We want to make sure we're responsible in our own zone. We've got these young defensive guys who are playing incredibly well in juniors, but they've got some mistakes or some habits that they're going to have to break at the next level. Yada, yada. And it's just like, okay, yeah, man, I see what he's looking at in the long term, but not every player fits with every guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, which guys are going to fall out and which guys aren't. And it's going to be really interesting. I think, I mean, second to the draft lottery, I think hiring a coach is the biggest decision they're going to have to make this year, because no matter what, they're going to get Zegras signed. They're going to get Terry signed. They're not going to let these guys walk, obviously. Yeah. So, you know, at that point, I think it's the draft lottery, which isn't really in your control.
Yeah, it's more so, you know, if you don't get first overall, it becomes a decision at the draft. Who do you take at 2 or 3 when you've got a mix of names there that are kind of all together? That becomes, you know, an important decision as a result of the draft lottery, who you're taking if you don't get Bedard. If you get Bedard, you're cakewalking into the draft and you know who you're taking at 1. You're not making a mistake. But yeah, the head coaching decision immediately after the draft becomes the most important thing on the table. And like you said, you know, we could see, I'm sure they've had conversations already, but you could see that Terry and Zegras contract extensions, you know, leak into July at that point, right? Where it's just not on the docket at that point. You want to put your full attention to it, but you've got these other things you've got to deal with immediately. You know, getting a new coach in, and then figuring out what you're going to do at the draft.
So according to Tankathon, as you put in our doc, Montreal has 6-11 right now. Anaheim is in 3rd. Let's say Anaheim wins a lottery, but they win the 2nd place lottery. And you get a call from Montreal that they want 6, and they'll give you 6-11 for the 2nd pick and your your 2nd pick and what do you call it? Your first 2nd round pick.
I'm not moving outside the top 4 in this draft. I'm not, even if it's for 6 and 11.
You don't think?
I think there's a tier, and it drops off.
That's interesting.
It drops off heavily after those guys for me.
If Michkov is available at 6, do you think about it though?
If you think he's going to be there,
that's the one for me.
If you think he's going to be there,
that's the one for me.
The problem is that there's teams I think would be willing to wait.
Some fucking dork is going to take fucking. Yeah, somebody's going to screw up and let him fall past them.
Somebody will, but I think there's enough teams that are going to be drafting there that have a history of being okay waiting. I can see Columbus if they
he's
don't
not going to fall past San Jose.
Like if Columbus doesn't get 1, I can see Columbus doing it. Right? That seems like a move.
I don't think they can.
I
don't think they can.
It does seem like a Yarmo move, right?
Leinen's feet are to the fire,
if he feels some heat, then I can see it. But it does feel like a Yarmo pick, right? Like they picked Charnikov at 10 because they like them. They're fine waiting for guys. Arizona, I can see because of their timeline, and they're going to have to wait for their college guys for a couple of years anyway, and wait for the new arena, that they might be okay taking him if they're in the mix. And the Sharks, I could see being a team that would be fine waiting for him as well. Vancouver, Montreal, even Chicago to some extent. I think Chicago wants a guy on the ice soon, and that they'd be leaning more towards like Carlson, Fantilli if they had the option there. So, but if you think he's there at 6 and is going to make it there, then it's a legitimate conversation to be had. But you better hope he's there at 6 if you're going to make that move, right?
Because at that point you're looking at
Zach Benson,
Will Smith, and
Will
Tyler
Smith.
And Zach Benson. As your 6 and 11 picks, something like that.
And they're not bad players.
It's interesting.
But for me, like there's a tier, right? I think it's Bedard, then it's Fantilli and Michkov. I really like Leo Carlson, but I feel like he's maybe like number 4 there. And then it just drops down to a mix of guys around 5, 6, 7, and 8. But yeah, if you're in that top 4, I think you want to stay there. As enticing as it is to pick up a 6 and 11, I think in this draft you just want to make sure, especially where the Ducks are, you want to make sure you get that guy, right? Like you had such a bad season, you want to make sure you get one of those guys.
God, I want Michkov. I want Michkov if we don't get Bedard, Eddy.
Let's talk. We'll talk Michkov.
That would make me...
I want to talk about that because I want to get your thoughts on Michkov. I want to wrap up the quick trade talk.
No,
about
yeah,
the
for
Ducks,
sure. I'm just
with just a quick keep or sell with you, and then so keep or sell. Give me your opinion if you think the Ducks should keep or this guy or around, explore an extension, whatever, or sell them at the deadline. And then if you pick sell, the likelihood of them getting moved. All right, okay. Adam Henrique, keep or sell?
I would sell, but I think the likelihood is not high.
Okay. And what do you think the likelihood of getting moved is at the deadline?
I don't know.
I'm sitting somewhere around
40%.
Yeah, I was thinking like 20-25%. Just if you want to get what you would hope to get for him before you even try moving him out.
I think that there are teams who are in weird spots who could look at him, look at the certainty of having him for a second year, and be like, all right, what do we have to give Anaheim to get them to eat on this? And I think 30%. I think there's like a 1 in 3 shot that he gets moved somewhere that nobody's really expecting. All
right, Vetrano, keep or sell?
Keep.
Yeah, I'm in the keep boat too. Between him and Strome, I think for him you can see where he would fit, right? And when this team's back competing for the play, not that you can't see where Strome would fit, but I just think with what you're paying Strome, you want him in your top 6. And if a lot of guys pan out, maybe that's not an option at that point. Max Comtois, keep or sell?
Sell.
So,
I would sell at this point.
Likelihood of that happening, you think, at the deadline?
40% maybe.
Yeah, I think we're sitting just south of 50-50 at this point. I think he's the leading candidate for if you can do a 1-for-1 or something like a Puljujarvi for Comtois or some type of deal like that somewhere where you can move one of your good guys for another one. I know that's usually the Bob Murray way, but he's the most likely guy to be involved in a trade like that. I think, and just a better change of scenery type trade that we love to talk about every year. Ryan Strome, keep or sell?
I would be open to selling him. I think it's not even a 10% chance he gets moved.
Yeah.
And I don't mind keeping him because, he's a right-handed shot. He plays center. He plays wing. I have no issues with Ryan Strome. I think he's been fine. I would have maybe hoped a little bit more from him, but you can hope from a little bit more from everybody on this team at this point. So, but yeah, I don't see a situation where he gets moved.
Yeah, I'm in the keep category too, and it's only sell is if you get something that you can't say no to at that point. It just doesn't make a ton of sense unless you get an offer that you literally don't have to retain anything. You're not taking on any salary for long term from another team, and they're giving you the assets that just make it impossible to say no. Then fine, but I think the chances of that happening are low, under 10% at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
John Klingberg, keep or sell?
Sell.
Yeah, that's a sell. That's the easiest sell of them all, I think.
67%. I think,
I think we're at it.
2 out of 3 times he gets moved.
For me, a 85-90% chance he gets moved. I just don't see how they justify keeping him around at this point. I can understand an extension, but I just don't, with the way this team's played and the fact that you can get assets for him. And that's always been the plan. From the moment they acquired him or signed him in free agency, so I think it's a high chance, and I would definitely sell. Shattenkirk, keep or sell?
Oh, sell.
Sell too. Yeah, I'm in sell.
50-50.
Yeah, I'm in sell 50-50, but if we kept him at the same point, like I can understand. Just depends how long and for how much, right? I can understand like the
For me,
justification to why you would want to keep him around, but
yeah, I think, if he wants to do a 2x2 or a 1x2, something like that, maybe even 1x2.5, I don't have an issue with that. I don't know that I'd be comfortable giving him more than 2 years, and I would not be comfortable giving him more than $2.5 million.
Yeah, I'm right in the same boat there. I think there's a level where you have to say no.
Yeah, and he seems to be an appropriately, or not appropriate, that's not a fair way to say it, but he seems to be a guy that a lot of the guys in the room really like. And so, if you think he can be a steadying veteran, calming presence and help, especially with what we expect to be a coaching change over the summer, I have no issue with it.
Yeah, I think he's a guy you keep around for that. Like you can justify keeping around for that. And if you're the hope is that he's not going to have to play anything beyond a bottom pair role. And if you're only paying him a 1x2 or a 2x2 or something like that, then it's justified. Mm-hmm. And you can flip that if you had to, right? Like there'll always be people out there looking for a veteran defenseman who's won a Stanley Cup and can still play at an NHL level. Like even if you re-sign him to a deal like that, somebody will be interested in if you want to move him for assets down the road. And you're really not going to get much less than you would get for him now. So out of the three, I'd be fine keeping him around. And then last defenseman is Dmitry Kulikov, keep or sell.
So
I think there would be a lot of interest in Kulikov, just the profile, right? So.
50 to 60%.
Yeah, no, I'm in that same boat. I had Gibson here, but Gibson and Stolarz just kind of packaged them together. Just obviously be one or the other. Do you keep both goaltenders, or do you sell one of them?
I would sell both of them and get a goalie back in the Gibby trade fair. Because nobody's taken that money without, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be this guy again, but I'm going to be this guy. Is like, it'd be great. Is Gibby for Cam Talbot?
Yeah, I was looking Toronto, and I think Samsonov has been like better goaltender. But if Toronto was interested,
he's been really I was
up and down.
I saw somebody talking about the other day on Twitter about this is the order, or what do you think they need? Right? It's like scoring, defense, grit, or nothing. Yeah. And I was like, how is goaltending not on here? And then I looked, and by goalie GAR, I think Samsonov was 10th or 11th in the league or something like that. He's been good. Fine. He's been good. He's played fine.
He's had a few games here or there, like anybody where they've been off. The Leafs aren't a perfect team by any means either. So both goaltenders have played well and struggled, but he's just been more consistent than Murray at this point.
Yeah, and no goalie goes undefeated, so it's not like.
Pittsburgh could be one.
It's not like there's anything.
I mean, we always talk Gibson in Pittsburgh, but Yari's been out a couple times this year with injury. And
Casey DeSmith is just not good enough.
He's just not good enough to fill in for a long period of time. So Pittsburgh doesn't have a lot of time left to make more runs with Crosby and Malkin and Letang. So that's maybe, if they feel like they're locked into a corner here and Yari's not going to be their guy, you could see a move. I don't think you'd get Yari back. Mm-hmm. They'd have to figure out some way to fit both Yari and Gibson on the books and just run a tandem. But it's always a place you could see him going. He's always seems to be linked to Pittsburgh at some point, just because the goaltending's never fully solidified there. Even though when it does seem like they have two really good guys, you just get stretches where Yari's not the guy or he gets hurt, and then Casey DeSmith just can't be a starter. He just can't.
Yeah.
I'm on the same boat. I think one of them gets moved. I think obviously it's way more likely it's Stolarz, because I'm still in the boat. I would like to see Dostal get a few more runs at it.
All right. Here's my question. Yep. What are the odds that we see a trade of someone we are completely not expecting? By which I mean, you're probably looking at Cam Fowler. I don't know that there's really anybody else.
I feel like John Gibson could potentially be in that category because
I feel like it's those two.
Yeah, because you're not expecting it to happen. He's more likely maybe than Fowler because the name's been put out in discussions over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think those are the two guys. Like really, you're not moving Terry or Zegras or anybody like that. So everybody else you could make an argument for.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask, and everybody can yell at me later.
I don't know where this is going.
What would you even have to ask for Troy Terry? If you called and you said Troy Terry's potentially available for a king's ransom, like, is it multiple firsts? Is it a top 15 prospect? Like, I mean, league-wide top 15 prospect. Like,
yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
What do you even get close to enough?
Well, you have to think, like, player quality-wise, when you look at guys like Horvat and Meyer, he'll be moved. They'll be moved for a lot, but at the end of the day, it won't be as much as they would get with the type of control that you have over Troy Terry, right? Or a longer-term contract on the books, because you're getting a rental at that point. With Troy Terry, you are, in a sense, getting a rental, but you control him because he's a pending RFA. So you get to have that discussion. You don't have to worry about him walking or anything like that. So you are basically getting him with an extension. You just get the right to have that extension conversation with him, which honestly, for the team acquiring him, is almost more valuable, right? To be able to have that conversation with him and talk about what an extension should look like. You're not just getting handed a guy who just signed a 7x7 that maybe you don't think he's worth $7 million. So it would be a lot. Having a good season again, back-to-back good years, all-star appearance again, like all those things will play into it. I think you're looking at a first. You're looking at the team's best prospect for sure, and then you have to hope that, or you have to, whatever team you're dealing with, that prospect needs to be top 15, top 20 league-wide, I would imagine. For the way he's played, the contract control you get, his age, everything that goes into it, you're asking for a lot for the Ducks, and unless you're even getting more than that too, unless you're getting like just an offer you can't say no to, it's not even something I think you explore.
What if it's Shane Wright?
It's tough. It's right in that range.
Shane Wright to me is the line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Shane Wright is right at the line where it's like, oh, what if it's Lucas Raymond? You know what I mean? Like, and I just these are the questions I have, because this is the kind of stuff where I don't know. This is just a part of it that's really always fascinating to me, is like, how do you try to assess value or come up with a rough idea of value for some of these players who mean so much more? And let me be very clear. I don't want to trade for Terry. I think it's incredibly important to have guys who are a little bit older than everybody else when you're competing. I keep looking at Gabe Landeskog, who's like 28, 29 the year. They won the Cup last year.
Yep.
And thinking, that could be Troy Terry. Like, I don't see any reason why Troy Terry can't be 27, 28, 29 and part of the contending team, right? Ryan O'Reilly was later. Like, again, right? I just don't think it's everybody's under 25 except for like a defenseman and a goalie.
Yeah.
But it's an insane thing, because I can't tell if that speeds up or sets back the rebuild.
Yeah, it depends. I think whatever you accept, or whatever you would accept on a deal for Troy Terry, as the Ducks, you have to feel like you're getting above his value. So then again, you're looking at like that level of prospect near the top prospects in the league, a Shane Wright, or if you're talking, let's say, New Jersey, a Holtz or something like that, or a Luke Hughes, right? Like maybe Luke Hughes is just above that tier. But those are the types of prospects you'd be asking for. You wouldn't go to a team like Boston, settle with Lysell, right? You would go to a team that could use him, like New Jersey, like Seattle, that are going to be in the playoffs this year, that have a legitimate shot at going far, that also have a top prospect. And that limits your list at that point. Off the top of my head, Seattle and New Jersey are two teams that fit that. But rarely does it have synergy where you've got a top team that also has a top prospect. Buffalo, if you're looking at like Savoy or something like that, you could see them.
I want Owen Power. Give me Owen Power.
Yeah, or Owen Power. But Carolina really not in that boat anymore of having an elite prospect at that level. Boston certainly not. Toronto, no. Tampa Bay, no. The Rangers maybe, but I don't think Brennan Othman's really at that tier level. So then you're talking about other things with it. So if
and you're getting one of Kakko and Lafreniere if you trade fucking
Yeah, you're looking.
There's no way you're not.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, so New York's one that you could see it potentially fitting. Buffalo, I think, if they really wanted to take a swing at things, you could try and get Savoy, or if somehow get Owen Power. I know that's your favorite one. That was the last time we talked about this. It was a deal around Troy Terry if you could get Owen Power. You're looking at Seattle with Shane Wright, like you said. But other than that, like they're just the rest of the teams. Maybe Minnesota with Rossi, but Terry doesn't really fit, I think, what Minnesota needs at this point. So, it's not a ton of
Well,
options.
the other thing with that is they have and Troy Terry's going to make a shit ton of money next year.
Yeah, and some of those teams can't do that, right? Minnesota being one of them. They just can't take on the extra cap hit next year. But certainly a team like New Jersey, a team like Buffalo, a team like Seattle, they would be able to make that work and build that extension in. So it's possible.
St. Louis would be a weird one. I don't know that they have anybody.
Yeah, they don't.
But
they
if
don't
they
really
move
have anyone,
Tarasenko,
and they
Yeah.
can't.
It's
You
interesting.
can't afford to move anybody off the roster already. Too. I feel like for them, they can't make a big move, right? You've got Buchnevich, you've got Kiru, you've got Robert Thomas, you've got and if Tarasenko goes,
Right.
and somehow you want to bring in a replacement, but they just don't have the prospects or anything for it to make sense for Anaheim. But yeah, like if anything is surprising, it would be Terry, or it'd be Fowler, it'd be Gibson. Those would be surprising trades, but with the likelihood of one forward, Klingberg, and maybe another defenseman like Kulikov already getting moved, maybe a goaltender too, like Stolarz, it becomes unlikely, and almost just you're presented with this opportunity from another team, and it's just too good to say no to. That I don't think they're actively out saying, "Hey, what would you give us for this guy?" It's just
I
you're
agree.
sitting back one day, and Verbeek gets a phone call from, whatever GM, and says,
Right.
"Hey, listen, we're going to give you this for Troy Terry." And you're like, "Damn." I get, we'll talk about this, but it looks like it's a possibility. So, all right.
Columbus would be fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know what they can't, right? Like they're
Nemec.
yeah. Well, Nemec is Juracek is Columbus. Yeah.
Juracek, sorry. I got the wrong
if
record.
you could somehow, I don't think Columbus, like, they desperately need a guy like that in their roster, a right-handed shot like him, but he's playing really, really well in the AHL, and he had a good World Juniors as well. Like, he's a guy they gotta hope he can play next year, right? Like, Columbus is looking
absolutely.
at adding a Fantilli or a Carlson or a Bedard, getting Juracek in the lineup, getting Werenski back healthy next year. Who's the other defenseman they got? Matichuk, a couple years away from him too. They're hoping that those pieces can stick around, and Goodrow and Line A and all them are still going to be here. And Goodrow will be like that guy you said, that Landeskog type guy, when they hope that they're competing for playoff spots in the Stanley Cup. 31, 32, older player on the roster, but still contributing. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right.
No weird thing.
We talked trade deadline. We talked prospects. We have two prospect things I want to get into. Your love of Matvei Michkov and why he's your number 2, and then a poll you put out on Twitter about one. There's two-parter. Do the Ducks have a number 1 defenseman in their system, or a guy who could hit that level? Which the vote was yes. It was 40% yes, I think.
Yeah.
And then follow up to that was who's most likely to develop as a number 1D, which Mintyukov slightly edged out Zellweger, right? That was the result, I think.
Yeah.
We'll get into that one, but let's talk about your love for Matvei Michkov, because we've talked about Bedard and Fantilli and Michkov a little bit. He's your guy outside of Bedard now, right?
Yeah. I think... So basically, my thing with it is Anaheim needs goals. Like, I think McTavish has the opportunity to be a goal scorer in so much as he can probably hit 30 more times than not. I don't know that he can hit 45. I had a brief stint there last year where he was just putting them in from the playoff dot, and I was just like, all I could do was just be excited about it. I don't think Zegras is a 40-goal guy. I think really you're like, hopefully Troy Terry's a 40-goal guy consistently, right? But other than that, what you've got is a lot of guys who seem to be in probably in a great world, you're looking at a lot of guys between 65 and 85 points.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. Love it. Super stoked. Matvei Michkov has legitimate 50-goal upside. And we're seeing scoring boom or increase around the league. Let me not say boom, but like it feels like it for people our age, I guess. As we're seeing scoring go up, I think it becomes more and more important. I think the balance he would bring to the lineup is incredibly valuable. And I do think stashing him for 3 years is a huge bonus for Anaheim. Because in that time, you have the opportunity to build this roster up a little bit more, get it into a point where it can push for that wild card spot, right? Or third, or however, the Pacific's weird and playoffs are weird every year. But like kind of make it happen that way. And if that happened, you then drop this fucking potential superstar right into the lineup as these other kids are right in the middle of their stride.
Yeah, you hope it's like.
And I wonder if he has a Kaprizov.
Yeah, that's what I say. You hope it's a Minnesota situation, just where you're maybe a little bit more developed throughout the lineup before he gets there. Kaprizov got there, and then Rossi wasn't there yet, and still isn't ready yet. And Boldy was just coming in, and now he's starting to get going. And you've got some of the Eriksson Ek and Zuccarello and everybody.
Hit, Greenway had hit.
Yeah, so you're hoping you're there, but a few years down the road, right? Because now you're Rossi in the sense of like your McTavish is ready and your Zegras is there and Terry's still there and everybody's ready, and then you can just drop Michkov in and it's the Kaprizov effect, but on a much better team, much better built team around it, where you just drop in the
certainly a much stronger forward group.
Yeah, certainly 100%. Yeah, so it's that's the goal. That would be the plan, and that's what you'd hope for with Michkov. I think if you want goals, Bedard, if you want anything, but if you want goals, Bedard's still your number one pick at number one, no matter what. But if you're gonna go next best guy, I think the argument I could take. You could convince me Michkov over Fantilli, even though you get Michkov maybe a year or two later. Just last year there was no question, right? There was talk of Michkov could rival Bedard, and then the World Juniors happened this year, and Bedard's great season. And the fact that Michkov couldn't be at the World Junior Championship, which, whether you like it or not, is going to hurt the draft stock a little bit. And then the KHL just being the way it is, that the numbers don't look impressive when you look at just take everything out of context and just look at the numbers that he's producing in the KHL. For a player his age to be doing it at the KHL, it's amazing. But that all kind of goes into it. With all of a sudden this guy starts falling, people aren't looking at him as much, and then you have a guy like Fantilli who started the way he has in college and putting up an impressive, close to record-setting season there, that all of a sudden it starts falling off a bit. But I think people forget how the hype train that had built over Michkov last year, that just really hasn't fully fallen into this year. So he'd be a guy I would love to get. And I'm still split 50-50, and it's only because you're getting Michkov later. Other than that, if you could get Michkov in next year, I'd probably have him above Fantilli, just with the potential there, the potential to be a superstar in this league. I think Fantilli.
I have a hard time thinking he wouldn't be two with a bullet if he was coming over, even if he was coming over 2 years, right? If he was next year is off, the year after that he's in. I don't think it's a conversation.
No. Because you're fine with that. I mean, that's most players. It's their D+1 season. They're in college or junior still or overseas, and then they would come the next year anyway, unless they're, one of 5 guys really from that draft. But yeah, the fact that it's 2, I think, is the thing. Because Fantilli, there's no guarantee he plays in the NHL next year. He could go back to Michigan and play in college. That's it's a possibility for sure.
Absolutely.
So if it was 1 year for Michkov, you're like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. 2 years. 3 years, then it becomes okay. Like, now we're losing out of time that we would have had this other guy. And how much more do we like Michkov that we're willing to forego that year or whatever and have to deal with the issues of him? Maybe he doesn't come over, and does he sign another KHL contract and whatever, right? But you would have all that worked out through draft interviews and anything, hopefully, beforehand, that you know exactly what type of situation you're getting in. You've talked to the player, you've talked to agents, you understand that. No, the plan for this kid is when his contract's up in the KHL, he's coming over. And then I think you're comfortable. And when you know the date and with close to absolute certainty that you're getting this guy at this time, that's when you can say, okay, we'll wait. We think he's that much better than this next guy.
And I think the other thing that kind of has to come into the calculus too, because I do understand the concerns. This, for me, is an upside play. Um, but I also do think there's something to be said of if you get a Fantilli or a Carlson, even if they stay one more year wherever they're at, and then they come over for 24-25.
Yeah.
That's 24-25 and 25-26. That's 2 years of getting to help build these guys, bring them in, develop them, get them in your culture, get them around your coaches, learning your system, all this stuff.
Yep.
The issue with Michkov is you're punting on that opportunity. Now, the counterpoint is he's playing in the KHL. He's playing against men.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's not like, he's waiting 3 years and he's playing beer league in, Florida or some shit.
Of all guys who come from any league and just can drop right into the NHL seamlessly, more often than not, that's from the KHL, right? Like they drop in and there's not a huge difference and they don't need any time to adjust. Whereas from the other leagues, when you see forwards come over, you get sometimes a slower start. I mean, we look at, I don't want to throw him over the bus because I think he's been good, but you look at Regenda, you look at, some of the top forwards that have come over from Sweden as high-profile free agent signings or whatever, European signings, that all of a sudden they don't pan out at the NHL level. With the KHL, I think you see that less frequently. So, yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're dropping any player, when you drop any player into a situation and they haven't had time to, play in your system, work under your coaching staff and whatever, you run the risk of that first year it doesn't pan out or whatever. But if you think that he's as talented as he's going to be, those guys usually have no problem fitting in, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Kaprizov fit seamlessly into Minnesota. When Kucherov came over.
Well, yeah, when you're that fucking good.
That's what I'm saying. Like Kucherov, Kaprizov, if we think Michkov's going to be at that level, that's who he's getting compared to at this point, is the two top Russian forwards in the league. Younger ones, we don't throw Ovechkin under the bus, but you look at Kucherov and Kaprizov, that's what I think a lot of people think Michkov could be, if not better. Then he should have no problem fitting into any system anywhere, right? Like you just plug him in and he's so good that it doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. And, it's just the fucking raw goal-scoring totals that he could theoretically, because again, with draft picks, it's all theoretical, but just, I mean, he would probably come in as the best goal-scoring prospect since Bobby. Maybe even if you wanted to really be weird about it, you could say Korea. Just raw goal scoring. Right?
I think Laine definitely got some of that treatment of being like just a pure raw goal scorer.
But for Anaheim,
for Anaheim, then yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, because there's been plenty. Like there's been more than a few. I mean, Austin Matthews is probably the best goal scoring prospect that we've seen. Patrick Laine is right up there, like you're saying. There's a couple of these guys that we've seen. But I think if you're Anaheim, you have an opportunity to add a player stylistically that you haven't really ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, Perry's a great goal scorer, but you didn't have that profile coming in that,
Yeah, he went 18th in the draft for a reason.
Yeah, so... I'd be excited for him for sure. I mean, listen, anybody in the top four I'm happy with. Anybody in my top three of Bedard, Fantilli, Michkov, I think you're ecstatic with. I do like Leo Carlson a lot. Just looking at reports on these guys, watching some game footage of them, and just like the pure raw potential for the three of them, I think is just a little bit above Carlson. I think Carlson's going to be great. I'd be happy with him in Anaheim if the Ducks got him at 4. But for sure, like the prize is Bedard. If you don't get Bedard, I think it depends on your choice between Michkov and Fantilli. But if you end up with one of them, you're extremely happy, no matter what. So if you're at 3, then you just take whoever's left. I think of those guys and run away happy. So yeah, as long as they stay within that mix, I think it's gonna be great. But Michkov seems, after his loan move, was St. Petersburg before, and now he's playing for Sochi.
Yeah, SK St. Petersburg.
Since going to Sochi, it's been back to what you expected from him. The numbers he's putting up as an 18-year-old in the KHL are impressive. So I think he'll work his way back up. He'll work his way back up that list, and there's going to be some teams, if he has a strong finish to the season, that will take notice. Nobody's pushing Bedard, but you could see Michkov potentially pop back in front of Fantilli for that number 2 spot if a team really likes him that much more.
Michkov to me is going to be the one that I am very fascinated to see where he goes, because again, I just sat here telling you all the reasons I would take him at second, but I think it was on the PDO cast, Cam Robinson was talking to Dimitri, and Cam was like, he had 2 guys from teams tell him they wouldn't take Michkov in the top 20. And Dimitri made the point that I thought was very funny and probably true, which is, it sounds like 2 teams that aren't going to have picks in the 20s. And then Cam made the joke like, oh yeah, they also might just be feeding me crap to get me to say stuff out loud, and then people think he's going to fall, or maybe he's whatever. And I thought those were very funny, but like, I don't think he'll fall like Ratu did. I don't think he'll fall like Lambert did,
or even like Podkolzin. I don't think he'll fall to 10.
Yeah. I don't think he'll fall like Rossi, who was probably maybe the 5th best prospect that year. I think some people had Rossi ahead of Drysdale and Sanderson in that draft. So it's going to be really interesting. I think what happens to Michkov is going to be fascinating. I also think you can't ignore the non-hockey parts of this, which is everything going on in the Ukraine right now, the already strained relationships between the United States and Canada and Russia, and like all of that. Like, it's just messy. It's a lot. I could see him in theory falling to 10, 11, 12. I don't think he will. I think there's too many teams between 5 and 9 who are like, fuck it, let's just take it.
Yeah.
We're not going to get a better opportunity anytime soon to get someone this good.
Yeah. He's just that much better, I think, than the guys below them, that teams will take that risk where there's less concerns than some of the other guys who've fallen. It'd be like a Shane Wright fall, essentially. Like, you wouldn't fall below 4 or 5.
Yeah,
right? He's still good enough that you have to take him no matter what. So, all right. The other poll I talked about, who's most likely to develop as number 1 D. You listed Mintyukov, Zellweger, Drysdale, right? And then other as the options. And it was overwhelmingly Mintyukov or Zellweger. Mintyukov's edge, Zellweger, Drysdale seems like an afterthought at this point, even though I think if he was healthy this year, there'd be a little bit more votes. It's just with the injury and everything, the other guys have impressed so much that it's a recency bias type thing.
Yeah. So the first poll was, do the Anaheim Ducks have a number 1 defenseman in their prospect pool as of right now?
Yeah.
The answers were yes, definitely, maybe, probably, maybe, but not likely, and absolutely not. Definitely won 40%. Maybe, probably was 35% second. Maybe, but not likely was 17, and absolutely not was 8.
Okay.
So the majority of fans think the Ducks' next number 1 defenseman is in the prospect pool right now.
Yeah.
The next question: who is most likely to emerge as the number 1 D-man for Anaheim? Drysdale, Zellweger, Mintyukov, other. Reply with answer. Drysdale 25%, Zellweger 35%, Mintyukov 38%.
Okay. That's so even.
Other 2%.
Yeah.
You cannot convince me that Mintyukov being 3% higher than Zellweger isn't because he's also 3 inches taller.
Yeah, and
I just don't see how the fact that he's 6'1" over 5'10" or 5'9.5" doesn't account for that gap to me.
Yeah, I think
because he's just bigger, he's more physical.
it's newer, the way he's played this year, the headlines he's put up this year. Like, he's cooled down since going to Ottawa. It's been the complete opposite of what he had in Saginaw. That was my one concern and issue with him going to a team where he's not the only guy in that blue line that can do anything. It's not like he's been bad, but he's not asked to do the same thing. Where Ottawa has other options on the blue line now, he can doesn't have to be the guy who breaks out the puck every single time and does everything from the blue line, his penalty kill power play like he was for Saginaw. So he's slowed down a little bit, but I still think what he did earlier in this year and the fact that nothing against Zellweger, he's having just as good a year as last year, it's that newness, right? We just drafted Mintyukov. He started excellently this year. He's raised his stock beyond what it was when he got drafted, and now everybody's kind of in that hype train of him potentially being that. Then obviously there's still some love for Zellweger because how he's played this year and what he did at the World Juniors, and then Jamie still getting 25% is surprising for me. I think he should be right in the mix with both of these guys, if not higher, because the fact that he's in the NHL at this point. But it's just the injury, right? The injury, and all things considered, not at the same level as what people are expecting number one defenseman to be in their first or second season last year. I think he was great, but
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is a number one defenseman to you?
See, I think that's the question. Is if you're thinking it's Makar or something like that, then nobody's going to have a number one defenseman in their system because Makar is almost a level above that, right? It's elite superstar at that point, and that's not necessarily what we're saying. We're saying, do the Ducks have a number one defenseman in this?
Who's the worst number one defenseman you can think of?
That's tough.
That's the question. I think the way you ask that question is who's the worst number one defenseman.
Unfair question in a sense because again, who are you comparing that to? And they're all great defensemen because they're still number one defensemen. I think you could look at Lindholm and McAvoy as options because but then what are you basing it off of, right? Like that's the problem is if you're basing it off points, then maybe you throw them in there, but they do a lot of other things better than the point getting defensemen do a lot of things well rounded. You could put Ekblad in that conversation if you want to say he's maybe the worst number one defenseman out there, but you have to look across the board, and some teams don't have any, right? So there's teams who don't have any either. So
I think you could make an argument that simply based on age, you could look at Doughty or Hedman.
Yeah.
But again, at their peak, they were fantastic.
Seth Jones, Carlson. If you think he's the number one defenseman, you can say he's the worst, but I don't think he's the number one defenseman at this point.
I don't think he's the number two defenseman.
Yeah.
Hey.
Dougie.
Remember when you thought he was better than Hampus Lindholm? You moron.
It was valid at the time.
It was not valid at the time. It was
more. It made more sense at the time.
Keep telling yourself.
Okay, so you question before we get into the other, because I know there's a guy you want to mention. I think there is only one other guy than those three that you could make a case for.
No one
of the three. Drysdale, Michkov, Zellweger, who do you think has the best chance of being a number one defenseman? Or do you think any of them are number one defensemen? Or with the potential to be?
Of the three of them, I want to say Drysdale just because I've seen him play solid defense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not great defense, but he's still young and he's a little small. I think as he gets older, as he fills out a little bit more, his skating isn't going to get worse. He's only going to get smarter. I think you could talk me into it being Drysdale. Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced there's a number one D in this prospect pool right now. I really am not convinced of this.
Yeah.
And that's a very curious thing to me. Because what I think of as a number one defenseman is a guy who's going to play 25 plus minutes a night and should be an asset at both ends of the ice. Mm-hmm. Even if it's the peak of Erik Karlsson, where it's just he just gets the puck out of the zone immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
And if he makes a mistake, he's quick enough to get back to at least, he's not the best defender, but he's got the speed or whatever to do it. So.
Right. You can't have him out there in front of his own net and stuff like that trying to do that. He's going to be miscast. Mm-hmm. But the offensive upside is so significant and the intelligence is so high that you absolutely can mitigate some of those defensive mistakes in his own end. I just don't know that they have any.
I'm a bit more optimistic, I think, maybe than you with the pool in terms of guys potentially being number one defenseman. I still think, in all fairness, it should be Drysdale who should be number one. I think, for me, Michkov has narrowed the gap to where I put him just below Drysdale and pushing above him, but it's not fair to say he's above him yet when we haven't seen Drysdale play this year at all, really, right? So for me, it's not fair to put him above him. But I think when you look at Michkov and Zellweger, and this isn't a detriment to Zellweger, I think he's a great defenseman. I think there's going to be certain situations that he's just a lot better in at the NHL level. I think he's going to be a real solid top four defenseman, a guy you could potentially put in the number 2, number 3 category. I just think there's going to be some things that limit him from being a number one defenseman. But Michkov, I think he has that shot because he's got the ability to get the puck out of the zone. He's one of the most dynamic puck carriers outside of the NHL at this point. And he's got the size and the reach. And now he's worked on the defensive game that I could see him being a number one defenseman at the NHL level. If everything comes together, I just feel like he has a little bit more of a chance than Zellweger, and I love Olen Zellweger. But for me, I would put him at having more of a chance to do so. And the real question mark becomes, when we get outside of the junior level, how much of that translates, whether it's the offense or his ability to defend, because there have been question marks about that before. But yeah, for me, like Drysdale, I think has the potential to be a number one. I think Michkov's in that discussion. Zellweger, I'd put outside of it just a little bit right now. But if he became a number one defenseman, I still think that's his absolute ceiling, right? Like I still think there's the potential in there for him.
There's a version where he's Jared Spurgeon with more points.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at that point it would be fair to say he's a number one.
Absolutely.
Unless somebody on the team was better than him, if you're looking at Michkov or Drysdale.
Right.
Now the other guy, you mentioned him as being a guy you think. I think you said this to me. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you said he was the most likely out of all of them. You think he's the most likely out of all of them to be a number one defenseman. That's Tristan Luneau.
Yes. So the way I said it was, I don't think that there's a number one in the system. But if I had to put money on a guy to be that guy, I would put it on Tristan Luneau.
Okay.
I think he's got good size. He's got really good skating. He has shown, when we talked about Scott, and Scott was just talking about how smart and responsible a two-way game he plays. I think his puck skills have improved. I think we've seen him have more offense as he's gotten a little bit older. I think he's got pretty good points this year. I haven't checked in a minute.
In 45 games, he had 43 and 63 last year. So it's definitely an improvement.
So his, I think that there is a version where he is, oh man, this is such a shitty thing, but McAvoy light. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where he's got enough size. Because McAvoy's not that big. I think McAvoy's 6 foot, 6'1".
And Luneau's listed as 6'1", 190 or something right now.
So I could see a version of it where he's kind of like that, where he's maybe closer to this version of Hampus Lindholm, which is obviously the best version of Hampus we've ever seen. But he has that kind of two-way ability, and his puck skills are underrated, and he's able to produce more at the next level than we think. There's a world, I think, where that's a very real thing. I think he has the highest likelihood of all of them. I still don't think that guy's in the system yet. And I would love for nothing more than him to be wrong. But I think for me, even all of that said, if you told me Michkov, Drysdale, Zellweger, Luneau was our top 4 in 4 years, I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah, and
there's a version of that top 4 that is phenomenal and incredibly suited to play a more modern, attacking, skill-based game.
Yeah, all size, speed, smart hockey players can do a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. None of them are significantly bad defenders. And we've seen development from Luneau, we've seen development from Drysdale, we've seen development from Michkov in that. Zellweger is really...
I think Luneau's the most competent defensive player in that group.
I think so. I think he might be the smartest player of the group, and that's saying something when you've got Michkov and Drysdale and Zellweger there, but just the hockey sense that comes with it, I think that's going to really help him. And the big thing from him, too, is the jump he's had offensively this year. That happens as you progress through junior, but... The concern was, 43 points in 63 games in the draft year is nice. This was a guy, though, who was originally drafted first overall in the QMJHL draft. This was a guy they expected to be, an offensive juggernaut as well as kind of all well-rounded everywhere else. And that last year was a bit of a disappointment. And then come out this year in the way he's played, over a point per game, equaled and passed all of his numbers last year in 63 games already in just the 45 he's played. So he's a guy who's working his way in that discussion when you think, maybe if you don't agree the Ducks have a number one defenseman, I think you can agree right now in the prospect pool, they have at least 4 guys who look like they're going to be top 4 defensemen at the NHL level in Drysdale, Michkov, Zellweger, and Luneau. And if you can have your top 4 with those guys, I think that's solid. And maybe only one of them pans out and becomes a number 1 or a number 2, or maybe 2 of them do. But you've got 4 guys you're comfortable saying in 2 or 3 years' time are on this roster and should be on this roster.
Yeah, I think, you can even go a step farther and say there are 4 guys right now, these 4 guys that we're talking about, who all have legitimate top pairing upside. You know what I mean? they might not be the best player on a top pair, right? I think, that kind of, like, you could end up with, like, something closer to Devin Taves or Mackenzie Weegar, where it's like, no, these guys are really good. They can probably hold down a second line or a second pair on their own, but they are absolutely good enough to play your 25 minutes a night top pair lineup. And that's huge. Like, I think that's incredibly exciting. And then you've got, depth players, which I still think, Anaheim is going to need. They're going to need a guy like Tyson Hines and Nolan Warren to hit, because they are going to need to find that size. Like, I think as the skill increases, we are going to see bigger scoring forwards, Slafkovskys, guys like that who are really able to use their body to drive to the front of the net and create chaos. And you're going to need guys who can play with them.
Yeah. Noah Warren seems like the guy to be that at this point, but I think Drew Hellison, definitely a good chance, and Tyson Hines is a good shout as well.
Hines,
Anything Tyson Hines, a lefty, the other two are righties. You've got some options there. Of guys, I think Henry Thrun is still an option too. He's bigger, kind of more two-way defensive-minded guy as well. So he's one that could come up, and then even, again, the rest of the guys you round up the system, Ian Moore, Jackson Lacombe, you've got some versatile options down there. So the Ducks have a lot of those guys who, if they don't have the potential to be a top four guy, they do look like players who could play in the NHL or play a role at the NHL level. So they've got a lot of kicks at the can for some of these guys to pan out and turn into NHL defensemen, which is good. Now you just got to get a few more guys on the forward side of things, because Braden Tracy hasn't worked out yet and Perreault hasn't worked out. So right now you're hinging a lot of those hopes on Pastujov to be a top 6 goal scorer. You get one hopefully in the top end of this draft. And then get, a second first-round pick here. One of the 3 seconds you have, you hope you can add to that and go a little forward heavy and bring some guys in. So we're back to the days of the Ducks defense prospects and defense core being strong and having a lot of guys on the way. And now it's about adding to the forward. So
yeah, and I think, it goes to what we were talking about earlier, right? And, like, we didn't mention this, but Scott Wheeler has Anaheim as the number 8 ranked prospect pool. Which, like, yeah, man, McTavish left. Like, it makes sense, right? You know what I mean? So, like, I think what you can see is they have a top 10 prospect pool with lots of guys who look like they have plenty of opportunity and potential to be contributing members to a competitive team. You would say the deficiency is the truly high-end offense, the truly high-end forwards, and the truly high-end defensemen. Although, again, Michkov and Zellweger are incredible with what they're doing right now. And Drysdale might as well still be a prospect, given he's only played, 80 games, something like that? No, probably something.
You could even say McTavish deserves to still be in that category as well.
Right, for sure. So I think what you're saying is, like, okay, they've got their guy who should be the goalie. They've got 2 of the best goalie prospects. We haven't even talked about Kelly Kling. You know what I mean? And it's just about, all right, we got to just juice that top 6 a little bit more, and then it's a development game.
That's the thing about them being ranked where they are. It's not ranked where they are because they have 1 or 2 really high-profile prospects and the rest are mediocre. It's strength in numbers. They've got a lot of real quality prospects. Maybe not, with McTavish now graduating, it's nobody in the top 20 or a bunch of guys in the top 20 prospects in the league, but it's a bunch of guys in like that top 50, right, of really or top 100. So it's a well-rounded out prospect pool, and then you add one of those top 4 guys this year to it. That probably brings them up into the top 5, I would imagine. You leapfrog the Kings and a few other teams that aren't going to add to that pool this year by getting a guy like a Bedard or a Fantilli or a Michkov into that prospect pool. And if you do well with a few of your seconds, that's where you start to climb there. But that's the one thing they're missing, and the one thing they have been missing is that elite end prospect, really, to both sides of things in their prospect system.
Yeah, and I think, the thing to remember when you say something like in that top 50 or top 100, there's 32 teams. A top 100 prospect is again, average out is a top 3 prospect in every pool. A top 50 is a top 1.5 prospect in every pool. Like, again, I think you just said it perfectly. They've got a lot of kicks at the cans. They've got a lot of guys who can do a little different things. They are missing a little bit more of that truly dynamic offense with Zegras and McTavish up at the pros. But that's what this draft is going to have the opportunity for them to do. And those guys, the guys that they do have have legitimate, top half of the lineup upside. And there's guys here that can be depth players. I still like Sam Colangelo, even if he is only a fourth liner down the line. I like, a big body, hard slap shot dude who can maybe just pour in 7 or 8 goals a year on some bullshit. Like, that sounds awesome to me. So there's a lot to be excited about. It's such a weird thing. I think as the season has gone on and as I've kind of settled into exactly, because I came into this year expecting it to be this bad, basically. But I also think when it's a day-to-day thing, it's really hard to have any sense of general optimism because it's just like, fuck, this sucks every day. There's a lot to be excited about when you're able to step back, take the 100-foot view of everything. There's so much here to be excited about, and it just might take a couple years. It might take a little bit of time. Obviously, no rebuild is foolproof. No rebuild is perfect, but there's a lot here to be excited about. There's a lot of guys on this team right now that can be flipped down the line or part of a team down the line. Anaheim's in a really good spot. It's, again, this draft is going to be huge. This trade deadline, because of what it's going to mean for that draft, is going to be huge. And he has to pick a good coach this summer.
Yep.
That's going to matter a lot, is who he gets to coach this team. So I'm very curious. I'm going to be very, very curious. But, I think by, the beginning of August of next year, we'll have an idea whether it's 2 or 3 years away.
Yeah, I think so. We'll get a better look, obviously, who they come out of the draft with. And then once we see how this team is built for next year, you'll get an idea of how close they are. All right, the only thing I want to get into before we kind of do our game day predictions, we have to talk about it. I don't know if I want to go too in depth on it because it has kind of been resolved. Maybe we've missed the boat in a sense to have a deeper discussion about it. But the whole Zegras, Troy Stecher lip reading controversy that went on. Obviously, the game, I think it was the first game against the Coyotes in Ducks, or the second. Yeah, so the first game, Stecher and Zegras.
No, it was the second one.
Yeah, okay, because it was, we didn't
because
have any.
It's going to be a minute till they matched up again. Yeah.
So in that last game, there's a scrum, scuffle, Zegras and Stecher exchanged words. Zegras said something that inappropriate is what the team has deemed it as, that got Stecher going. Heated, more than I've seen anybody really get heated from smack talking or trash talking, right? It just extended a little bit, chased him down to the box and was going. So something that set him off.
He was jawing at the ref about it. It was a lot.
Something was said for sure. The issue we get into is the lip reading experts come out after the video gets released, and one person, I believe, is either a Canucks fan or a Stecher fan or a fan of the Coyotes or something, came out and clipped the video and made a note that it looks like Zegras said something about Troy Stecher's late father, saying, your dad's up there watching, and I don't know the full context of it, but really, really kind of harmful stuff to get out there when you don't have the audio or anything. You're just kind of lip reading what a guy's saying. If anybody's watched those fake lip reading videos that they put out, the comedy ones, you can tell how easy it is to make somebody seem like they're saying something. Based off lip reading, so by no means is it an accurate way to judge what somebody's saying, especially when it's something that is that potentially offensive, right? To put that out there and say that this guy said this, that's damaging to a player's character, player's career potentially, to put that on there. To say, I know that's probably not what the intentions were from the person who posted it, but it devolved into this whole day and a half long thing where it was actual news. Reporters were out trying to figure out what was said, if that was said, looking for comments from Stecher, from the Coyotes, from Zegras. Ultimately got resolved, and it turned out that wasn't what he said. We still don't know what it was, but what do you think about that? That for me is the ridiculous side of sports media and everything being kind of access to social media, that something like that starts, and then it spreads and becomes damaging from there.
So my initial reaction was, we're really jumping to this? I guess for me, it just seems so unlikely that is what it would be about. I know people said he was pointing up, but he also spun his finger.
Yeah.
So, to me, it was not in heaven. Like, you don't go about heaven like this. Like, you know what I mean? That's not how you talk about it.
Yeah.
It's just like up, straight up. But he was doing this. So, like, to me, like, that kind of cut at the credibility, legitimacy, likelihood, whatever you want to say of it. Two, for everybody to run with it in the way that they did was very frustrating, because it felt like people were very excited. And I made a comment the night of that it felt to me, or maybe it was the next day, but one of the two. But it felt to me like the majority of the conversation around whether or not he did say this and that he did, it felt like it was coming from people who don't like Zegras. You don't have to like him. I don't care, right? I'm not going to sit here and please like my star. Like, I don't give a shit. But it did feel like there are a lot of people who don't like him, and they think he's a shithead.
Yeah, that were willing and happy to jump to that conclusion.
And were more than happy to think of this of him.
Yeah.
And that sucks, and I feel bad for Trevor that he kind of had to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the longer I sat with it, I think the big takeaway for me has become, what does it say about this league that this many people felt that this was a real possibility?
Yeah.
So
we never had anything like that before.
I don't know. I don't. This is a weird thing, right? Because people were like, he was talking about his father, that's out of bounds, blah, blah, blah. Then it was like he came out and it was like, oh, maybe he was talking about like his girlfriend or his wife. And a lot of people were like, oh, that's still out of bounds. I don't know. Like, it's trash talk between professional athletes. Like, in general, trash talk is awful. Like, I don't moralize trash talk.
Brad Marchand's out here trash talking fans' wives on Twitter publicly. So I don't.
To me, as long as it's not a slur, I don't really get all that. Now, let me be very, very clear when I say this. You say some shit to me, you're going to upset me.
Yeah.
I say some shit to you, I'm going to upset you. I don't think that that's not the way it works. What I am saying is, as a third party, how much I want to take personal moral offense to what is said, the line is a slur. Like, that's the line for me.
Yeah.
When it's a slur, when it is definitively, clearly motivated by malice and it's derogatory, that's my problem. I don't really care if one player tells another player, say hi to your wife for me. Like, I honestly, and again, this is bad. I don't know how much I'm going to care if a player makes a comment like that, what Trevor Zegras was alleged to have said to another player.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like absolutely out of bounds in so much as like, dude, how is that where you went?
Yeah.
But again, like, I just think the parasocial relationship aspect of sports makes a lot of people pour a lot of time and energy and love into these sports and into these athletes. We develop these weird parasocial one-sided relationships with these athletes. And it creates all sorts of weird things. And a lot of it is really sweet, right? You have you have fans who are just fawning over players' dogs or players' kids or, oh my God, their wife or whatever, right? Like when the Backstrom OV commercial came out, the number of people who were excited that Nastia Ovechkin was in the commercial is cool to me, right? She's like a low-key celebrity for Caps fans themselves. It's a weird dynamic. But we have to understand that they don't know us and they don't care about us in a personal sense, right? I don't want to say that they don't care about the fans. They don't appreciate the fans. We've seen that there are players who go out of their way to treat fans well, throwing pucks over the glass, giving sticks away, signing this, signing that, whatever. Yeah. But it's not a personal thing. And I think that level of personal investment is necessary, but I think it needs to be checked at times. I am just as guilty of this as anybody else at times where I just get all fired up about stuff and I have to remind myself, bro, they don't know who you are. They don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And I want us to have a general sense of decency that is like a common center of like, yo, we don't go here. But it's really hard to decide that for other people.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why it comes back to slurs. And I know that's about as low as the bar can reasonably be. Let me say it this way. Honest to God, I think the only thing that would come near a slur that isn't a slur was, I hope X person in your family fucking dies.
Yeah.
That's across the line. That is the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head right now. Right? Wishing legitimate harm and ill onto a person, right? If we're in a scrum in the front of the net and I say, I hope you get your ass kicked, I don't care. That's fuck, whatever. If I am and you are in a scrum and I say to you, I hope your wife drives into a fucking lake, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's the line to me.
I think the problem with this whole thing too is there's different lines for different people as well.
Right.
Is that the people
and that's why I have a low bar.
Yeah, the people who don't give a shit about what he said, what he was alleged to have said. Like, there was a lot of people who just didn't care. Like, oh, that's fine. Like, that happens. It's pro sports. People say things. Like, people cross the line. It's not, like you said, it's not, a slur. It's not something that I guess, like, it's universally thought you probably shouldn't say something about somebody's parents who passed away, but it's not to that same level. And for some people, that's fine. For some people, that, it crosses the line. The problem I think we get is we judge what crosses the line based on how much we like or don't like that person. So for a lot of people, they don't like Trevor Zegras, so that crossed the line because they don't like him already. Morally, if it was their favorite player or something, there's an argument that they probably could be had there that, oh, like, whatever, like, I like this guy, so it didn't cross the line for me, but I don't like him, so it crosses the line. I think that's the problem we got into is, like, listen, if he had said that, that's horrible. Like, you don't say that to somebody, especially somebody who just lost a parent. Like, you don't say that.
Right.
But at the same time, like, again, that crosses the line for some people, and for some people it doesn't. And, like, you can guarantee that there is some nasty-ass shit that's still on the ice that you don't hear and that you don't find out about.
Every night.
Every single night. And it's not really meant to be heard by anybody off the ice for a reason. And that's in every pro sport. Trash talking is just there. And listen, it doesn't make it right if he had said that. Still would have been a real shitty thing for him to say if that was the case.
A super fucked up thing to say. That's the thing, right? I don't want to come off like I am inherently condoning the comment, because if he had said that, like, fuck, dude, like, really, that's where you went?
Yeah. It's just at a point where you can be on either side of that line, and there's no surprise to somebody being on the other side of that line. Like, there's an argument you can be had. I think that's a great way to say it. Where there are certain things, like you said, where the bar you have is set is like everybody can come out of that and be like, listen, like that was not okay, like that was offside, right? And that this borderlines and gets close to it for a lot of people. And I think for me personally, it would have been, really shitty for him to actually say something like that, and that would cross the line for me. But again, I can see somebody's argument saying for me, like, that doesn't cross the line. People say shit all the time on the ice. Like, I can understand somebody coming from that point and saying, listen, like, I'm not upset with him as much as somebody else would be for saying it. And the problem I have is with that, because you can have that much variance in how much it bothers somebody or not. The ultimate deciding factor becomes how much do I like this guy or don't like this guy, and that's where I think it gets to be a problem, right? Is when you can make that you can make that judgment on if what he said was okay or not was based on how much I like this guy, then that's not right at that point. We should be able to make it, whatever he said should be what we should be judging it off of, not whether I like this guy or not.
And here's the other thing. Trevor Zegras is going to get his ass kicked at some point. He talks a lot of shit. Yep. I love it. I think we talked about this earlier in the season. The penny dropped for me, and I was like, he's Corey Perry. He's not Getzlaf. He's Corey Perry. He's going in there. He's cross-chesting guys after the whistles. He's throwing elbows. He's talking constant shit. He doesn't shut up. He's talking to his own guys. He's talking shit to everybody on the other team. Like we saw it in the Boston game where Trent Frederick just decided to lose his mind because Zegras scored a goal and basically was like, yeah, fuck off. I got you.
Yeah.
He's going to get his ass kicked. If he had said that about Stecher's dad, I would be more than happy for Stecher to beat the shit out of him in a fight on the ice.
Yep.
I also don't have a problem if guys would have ran at him, like taken real runs at him for that. Because those are your teammates. They have your back. You don't talk about my bud like that, right? It's a different relationship. And if you want to actually make that player accountable and hold them to like, look, dude, we're going to run at you until you fight one of us. Whether you want to or not, you're going to have to do it, right? We saw Cassian do this with Kachuk.
Yep.
He chased him around constantly. He was like, no, you're going to fight me. I'm going to make it happen. You can do this now or you can do this later. And I don't think that that's bad. I don't think that, like, you know, I saw somebody online say, like, it should be like a suspension or a fine. I'm like, that's not going to fucking do anything.
Yeah.
There's no part of that. And again, what we're doing is creating a line that not everybody sees. And I don't think that that's fair.
Yeah. No.
And so, you know, I just think he's going to get his ass kicked at some point. Whether or not it mellows him out is entirely up to him.
He knows that, too.
And I imagine the quality. Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't think he has any, like, misconceptions about what he's doing and what the potential price he's going to have to pay is. I don't think that's the way it is, right? Because, again, like, even when you go back to the whole Troy Terry thing last year with Arizona and he cut that promo, his whole point was just like, Terry doesn't do this shit. Not that nobody deserves it.
Yeah.
It was, he's a, what do you say, 30-goal scorer in this league.
Yeah.
He's a superstar in this league, and he doesn't play that way. Nobody cares if it's Corey Perry. Nobody cares if it's Ovechkin or Kucherov, right? We know that there are asshole superstars who get Matthew Tkachuk, right? These guys exist. We're not saying you can't do, like, we're not saying that that doesn't exist. But there is an understanding that, like, it's dependent. Like, guys don't go into those phrases all the time. Like, you see it every time there's a thing. There's certain guys who the first thing they do is look for somebody else on the outside, and then they give them a hug. And they're just like, we're not doing this. And the other guy's like, yeah, that's fine. And then, you know, whatever. Like, it's up to these players in a sense to kind of decide which side of these lines that they want to live on. But they have to be willing to pay the price for that.
Yeah, and they know what that line is. You know, find out quick when you play like that what that line is. I'm sure Zegras is not stupid. He understands that there's times he crosses that line, and he knows exactly what he's played hockey long enough to know exactly what the consequences are if he does cross that line. And he's probably crossed the line.
Never found a goalie. Yeah, absolutely. Corey Perry never found a goalie that he couldn't fall on. He knew that every time that he went into that paint or near the top of that crease, he was going to get 50 cross checks in the back.
Yep.
And he made the decision. That's fine. He knew he was going to get popped after whistles. Like there's just players who understand what this is. If you're going to engage in this thing, right? Like, that's why, like, what was his name? Maxime Lapierre, I think?
Yep.
Fucking hated that guy. Because he wanted to live on that side of the line, never wanted to pay the price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind if you talk shit. I don't mind if you don't talk shit. But if you're going to talk shit, it's the internet axiom of, like, 2022. You're going to fuck around and you're going to find out. Somebody is going to tell you exactly where these lines are.
Yep.
And you can either decide for yourself if you want to keep going across it or not. But I don't have to let you talk to me that way. And at that point, it's up to you. And so, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen.
I think I'm just old and violent and angry.
I'm glad it's over and it's resolved because it was getting a little down a path we didn't want it to go at that point. All right.
Real quick, one more thing I want to say. Because I touched on this, but I don't know that I really rounded this point out. And I don't know that I can, but I want to just mention this. I do think hockey needs to take a real serious look in so much as what the culture is that we're putting forward or the perception of the players is that, again, so many people who very clearly and very legitimately, okay, I don't want to say people are pretending, feel that crosses a line without any actual proof. We're so ready to believe that was what was said. And that's the part of this for me that I think reflects the most poorly on the league.
No, that's fair. All right. We got to get to these game previews.
I really didn't think we were going to hit 2 hours, and we made sure we did.
We always have to. We got game previews and the outro. It should take us right to 2 hours here. 4 games this week. Okay. So, hold on. I got to pull this up.
Is it in the doc?
Yeah, I just got to pull it up because there's 4.
Pacific falls to the Central.
Monday, at Dallas. So mini road trip here, 2 games. And Monday at Dallas, Tuesday at Chicago, back-to-back. Friday at home versus Pittsburgh, and then back quickly on the road for Vegas on Sunday. Tough matchups there, specifically Dallas, Pittsburgh, Vegas. Chicago's been better as of late, but what do you got for the first game? Monday at Dallas, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. What do you got? Ducks? Stars?
I'll take the Stars winning in regulation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've been great all year and haven't get this much rest off and go play them at home in Dallas. That's going to be a tough one. Back-to-back next night, Tuesday at 5:30 against Chicago.
I'll say we win that one.
Okay.
They suck. I'll take it.
Friday at home against Pittsburgh.
Wait, what do you have for Chicago?
I'm going loss against Chicago. I'm going loss.
So you have loss?
Yeah, loss for the road trip to start the week, back-to-back.
I'm going to say that they beat Pittsburgh in a shutout, and that causes Ron Hextall to trade for John Gibson.
I have them beating Pittsburgh too. That's the game I thought they could win back home against the Penguins. I have them winning that one, and then I have them losing on Sunday against Vegas.
Yeah, they're not going to beat Vegas. They always lose to Vegas.
In Vegas too, yeah. So I feel like you're going to get a 1 OT loss out of that. So I'm going 1-2-1 next week. I think that's fair.
I'll take 1-3-0.
We're so optimistic.
No, I had 2-2.
2-2. Yeah.
Yeah. I would be a little bit more confident in their ability to win the Dallas game if it was an older team. But because it's young, I think coming back from the break, they're going to have to find their legs.
Fair.
Where Dallas, like Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, like they've done this.
They'll be ready to go, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're officially back now, and hopefully when I hop off here, this one actually recorded your audio this time. Thanks for listening, guys. If you want to help us keep going throughout the season, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave us a rating and review on both of those platforms, and we'll read them on the show when we can. All video versions of the show exist on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/ForeverMightyPodcast. Make sure to subscribe, hit the little notification bell so you know when we release new episodes. Check out our website at ForeverMighty.com to find everything in one place, where to watch, listen to the show, how to support the show, and where to find us on social media, which for Twitter, you can find us at ForeverMightyFM, at Eddy Van Jones, and at The Hockey Boomer. But thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to everybody who continues to support the show. I know we were kind of off there for a month, but hoping to be back on a more regular basis. Some plans upcoming for the trade deadline. So just appreciate you guys all listening and coming back, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.